Hey, it's Justin Goff. I'm here with Dave Sinick, Copy Accelerator member. And today we're going to talk about how Dave took his company, Payload Hacks, and they've sold over 1 million free plus shipping cookbooks through Facebook, through affiliate deals. Their company's currently doing around $11 million a year in revenue. And this is a company that was just started a couple years ago. So, in terms of kind of selling stuff, especially free plus shipping offers, Dave is pretty much an expert at this. So, we're going to dive into that. But first, Dave, let's start with kind of how you got into the internet marketing world because you got a pretty interesting story. I know you hooked up with Ryan Lee and you were interning for him back right when you dropped out of college, right?
Right before I dropped out of college, actually. So first, thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here. Yeah, I mean, my story involves a hallucinogenic substance around the same time as reading the 4 Hour Work Week and learn. I was like, oh my God, you can outsource stuff to India? Like, that's a thing. And I had an internship at the time at the University of Miami, and I did it, and I realized the potential and was like, okay, I have to start an internet business. Like, this is where it's at. And I was trying to be a personal trainer at the time, and I was following guys like Eric Cressy and that sort of world that I know you're very familiar with from back in the day. And I got an email once that was from Cressy basically saying like he learned everything he knew about online business from a guy named Ryan Lee. And that Ryan Lee was hosting an event that people on Eric's list should go to. And wouldn't you know it, that event was hosted in Stamford, Connecticut, which is my hometown. That is where I was born and raised. And my first instinct was, why is this person having an event in Stamford? That's a really strange place. And like, I mean, because when it's your hometown, you're always like, what the heck? Like, who would ever want to be here? Though Stamford is like a major New York City commuter town, and it's really grown. But anyway, so I was like, this sounds like an opportunity for me. And I saw Ryan's stuff, and it was, make a lot of money on the internet, basically was this whole thing. And so I sent him an email before the event, and I said, hey, I'm looking to do this. Like, I want to make money online, and I'd love to intern for you so I can learn more about it. And he replied, and he said, yeah, come say hi to me at the event, and we'll talk about it. So I came back to Stanford during, I think it was like spring break or something, and I went to the Continuity Summit event, which is not where we met, but we met at the next event after that, the Fast Track to Fitness Millions, or as Mike Boyle liked to call it, the Slow Track to Fitness Hundreds. And I remember running into Ryan, and I had like a VIP pass or something, and he's like, see everybody, this guy gets it. I was like, oh, I'm in for sure. And yeah, he followed up with me after the event and asked me to be his intern, and I got started working with him. And basically, it's funny because Ryan was working in one of those like virtual offices at the time, which is basically just a room. And so I would come in and I'd basically sit across his desk with a computer and do what he told me to do. And now that I'm like my own business owner and stuff, like, that would be so uncomfortable for me to just have like a young kid in the room, like asking me questions and shit while I'm trying to get work done. Like I'm actually like very grateful. I mean, well, of course I'm incredibly grateful to Ryan for giving me the opportunity, because that's just like, he made a sacrifice for me basically, which is great. So yeah, that's how I got started with Ryan. And I can keep going if you like, or if you want me to take a
I'm
breath
kind of
for a
curious
second.
in terms of like, so you obviously kind of got your training wheels with him. What did you actually like learn and work on with him?
Ryan taught me two or three. I'll have to make sure I remember them all, but there's like two or three very potent things that have stuck with me from him permanently that I think are incredibly strong pieces of advice for anybody. The first thing is that business is all about relationships, and that if you're going to be in this game, you're not going to just be in this for like a month. And so when you have conversations with people and you meet people, they don't need to be transactional, and they should not be transactional right off the bat. If anything, the goal should be to make friendships, and the business will come and offer value to people. And I mean, that is essentially what happened with me and you and all the other people that we met. Like that like 3-month period is when I met essentially my closest friends in the industry. And all of us grew together and stuff. And it wasn't about like, oh, what's the thing? It was just like, we were all supporting each other and things grew. And so his thing was always, when you're trying to connect with people, it's how can I help you? And the powerful thing about that is that like you may think you have no way to help somebody or offer value to them, but sometimes it's just like being an interesting person, having knowledge about a subject that they might be interested in. Like shit, like my business partner Mike, the first real conversation I ever had with him was on Ryan's advice. Actually, it was talk to him about snowshoeing, and Mike, it was a very weird conversation because I don't care about snowshoeing at all. But I got Mike to talk, and I was like, oh, this is great, you know. And that conversation, believe it or not, is actually offering value to that person because they get to talk about something that they're passionate about and interested in. And it doesn't have to be this like, oh, what can you do for me in business? It's like, let's build a relationship here and go from there. So Ryan taught me the relationships piece. What can I do for you? He said, never use the phrase, I want to pick your brain, which is something I've been seeing a lot more recently. But I remember he did a video and he just kept doing this, like, I just want to pick your brain. And I just imagine him making that sound. I'm like, I'll never say that phrase because he's ruined it now. And then he said his other thing was basically in the absence of relationships and just in general, the true power on the internet is being able to run traffic or own traffic. And that's incredibly valuable. So it's relationships and traffic. And those are kind of like not necessarily competing forces, but generally speaking, like there's a world in which when you own, or at least back then, when you owned your traffic, you didn't really need relationships as much. Or if you had a lot of relationships, you might not need traffic as much. But he was basically saying like, those are the two things. And I was like, I'll just do both. And yeah, I mean, he also taught me a lot of good stuff about like, you know, I got really excited about the sort of get rich quick stuff. And I was about to, I basically told him like, hey, I want to start this side project with my friend where we're going to make money. And he's like, dude, like, that's really stupid. Like, and got my head on straight about like, no, this is, you have to still build a real business here. You know, you can't just like go and do this gimmick thing. You're a college kid. Like, you don't actually know what the fuck you're doing. You know what I mean? Like, I think that was a really good moment for me where I kind of pissed him off, I think, in that moment. And he called me out on it. And it was like a wake up call for me where I was like, I need to take this more seriously because I almost blew up my main mentor relationship. And that's incredibly important, you know? So he's amazing. Like he really got my head on right. And also like good values, family man, everything, like super great person.
So I know by the time you kind of exited from working with Ryan and stuff, you started working with Adam Glaude and John Romanello. This is what, mid like 2012 to 15ish or 14 or something.
2011 to 2012, I would say. I dropped out of school after Ryan and I stopped working together. We had the .com lifestyle magazine, which I loved, but after a few issues, we decided it was going to be too much of a hassle. Yeah, so I moved to San Diego. I got there 2011. I think I started working with Adam in like the fall of that year, and then Roman in like the spring of the fall in 2012. And Adam, basically, I met, he was friends with my roommate, Alex, at the time. He came over and was doing some dating calls. And I was listening to him give men advice and was just blown away by what he was saying. I was a young pup at the time and hadn't established my manhood quite yet. And he was amazing. I was like, this is the best dating coach relationship guy I've ever heard. He is like so impressive, so incredibly intelligent. And he really left a mark on me. And then he had this issue that happened in his business. He ran this launch and kind of messed it up, honestly, and ended up having like a big problem. And he came over and he told me about it. And and my response to him, and he'll back me up on this, is I was like, this is unacceptable. Like, this is bullshit that you're doing this to yourself, that you blew up this launch. I like yelled at him and I said, I'm taking over 30% of your business and I'm going to fix this up for you. And I'm going to run the show. And he was like, okay, which, you know, is kind of a crazy thought, honestly. And then we cleaned it all up. We built something again from scratch. We built a coaching program and we built a few converting offers and stuff, and had a great time together and made some really good money. And then Roman was slightly different, where he had a more established thing and he was really a rising star at that time, where like he was really blowing up. And so that was more of an opportunity where I was like, not necessarily coming in to save the day, but to help him scale and whatnot. And also, you know, because me and him were really close friends too. So I figured, I was like, well, I can just do what I'm doing with Adam for Roman. And I worked with both of them for a while, and that was good. But I did start to, and I'll pause as the subject changes here, but I did start to spread myself a little thin and see the problems there. But that was a little bit further out from that.
So, I mean, one thing that's interesting, me and you both kind of did similar stuff where like we were behind the scenes. I was doing
Mhm.
that with Patriot Health Alliance. Like my face was, a lot of people didn't know me really at all. I was kind of behind the scenes. You were the same thing with John and the same thing with Adam.
Adam.
I think like there's a lot of benefit for that to doing that, especially like early on because you learn like I'm assuming you learn a ton about how the businesses actually work, how payments are processed, what goes on behind the scenes, customer service, operations, all of that.
Yeah, I learned a ton and I didn't have to risk my own money and I didn't have any money at the time either. So for me, it was like the sort of other people's money piece of it. And so I got to do the training of all direct response without the pressure of like, I have to make this work. I wasn't mentally equipped for it back then, if I'm being totally honest with you. I did my own product. I had a product with my buddy Tom with a WordPress SEO blueprint back when that was like a thing, and you could sell SEO information. And we had a membership site, the terrible name called Real World Traffic. Can't even say that without like having to enunciate the letters. I was like Real World Traffic. But that was too stressful for me, to be honest with you. It was like it was scary at all times, and it didn't allow me to actually like grow the business properly. Whereas in the other things, like we were good to go with or without me, pretty much. And so, yeah, it was definitely really great. And I'm kind of a behind the scenes guy. Like I like being behind the scenes because every time I come out, I end up like being a very loud and verbose and whatever person, and then I like go in the shame spiral of like, whoa, people probably think I'm really annoying, and then I hide for a year until I come out again and repeat the cycle.
It is very different. I mean, I've learned it firsthand since when I sold Patriot Health Alliance in 2017 and now doing the coaching stuff with Copy Accelerator. It is a completely different thing being the face of something and having, I mean, because you get all the criticism, you get it all. I mean, I'm pretty good at like filtering idiots out of my world, but like, I mean, if you went through like my DMs and my emails, like there's still morons like heckling me and trying to break me down like every day. Which doesn't happen, which is nice when you're behind the scenes, you don't have to deal with that shit. Nobody
Mhm.
knows who you are. Um,
Well,
I mean, and the only real benefit of being the face is like maybe when you go to traffic and conversion, a bunch of people notice you. I mean, it's not like
well, I think there is benefit in the face because you become the business, and so you're increasing your personal value over time. I definitely had a lot of mental blocks around that because, like Alex, my roommate, was rapidly building himself into Jason Capital and is a big face now, and I felt guilty that I wasn't doing that for a while, and I was trying to figure out where I could be that person, but the truth is that I didn't want to be that person that didn't suit me, and also I think, and maybe this is just limiting belief, I didn't really feel like I was probably charismatic enough to do, to be that guy. Like I was and am a major fucking computer nerd. My favorite thing in the world is like Ultimate Frisbee and like Dragon Ball. Like I just I know that works with some people, but I could never figure out, like I never found like a niche that matched where I was at, where I could actually provide value and be that charismatic leader. And attention is something that I struggle with. I both seek it out and then really don't want it simultaneously. And I'm sure people can relate to that.
yeah, okay, definitely. All right, let's transition to Payload Hacks. So this was sometime around what, 2014 maybe?
2013. So the deal was signed for me to start running it with some partners in 2013, the beginning of that year.
So you started, let's start with where it started initially. You started working with them. Payload Hacks was basically like a Q&A website that got
Yeah, it
tons
was
of
a stack.
traffic based on Google search results for paleos. And basically paleo was like really booming at that time.
Yeah, so it was actually started in 2011 or a little bit earlier, and it was starting to blow up. It was a Stack Overflow Q&A site back when Stack Overflow let you have your own instances. So it's like a kind of like Reddit, sort of with upvotes and stuff. And the owner had like an 80,000 person list, and this was pre-primary tab shit. So that was like worth way more than what it is now. I mean, the 80,000 person list back then was worth like 200,000 a month or more probably. And basically I, through a relationship and another relationship, from my spreading myself too thin projects, I had connected with Neil Patel, who knew the owner of Payload Hacks. He was trying to figure out how to turn it into a business. He approached us, we took it over. and ran the show. And so that first year was kind of dicking around for a while. We finally launched a cookbook in spring and it crushed. We did a $37 digital cookbook and like made 30K our first day, which, you know, it's funny because like we're a much bigger and more successful business now, but like if I launched a $37 cookbook now and made 30K in the first day, I'd be like ecstatic. You know, I really didn't know how good I had it back then. And yeah, and eventually we actually didn't meet our terms of the deal that year. And so the owner asked me, and this was my first like real sort of aggressive business lesson. He was like, do you want to just work with me direct and cut out your partners? And at first I was like, I don't really feel comfortable with that. And then he asked me again, and I was like, you know what? Yeah, you know, I think there's like two people in this world. There's the people who get what they want, and there's the people who don't. And I prefer to be the person who gets what they want. And when someone's offering me a platter of gold, like it would be dumb for me to push it away, because I think many people in my situation would have said yes. And so I accepted that deal. And he was like, I need you to go right now, like drive 20 minutes to your business partner's place and tell him he's not a part of this anymore. And I did that, and it sucked for both of us. More for him than for me, for sure. And then I became the sole partner in Payload Hacks with Patrick, the former owner. And then we transitioned into Mike, which if you want, I can go into that story.
Yeah, I mean, that story is interesting because I remember you and I talking about this, and you were like, I want to find someone to buy. Basically, there was so much opportunity with the site. I remember you said like they were barely emailing their list. They weren't doing anything with affiliate deals. Like, there was gold sitting there, and they were basically just putting AdSense on the website and making whatever they were making,
like 5K a month. Yeah.
I remember having this conversation with you, and you were like, we could easily like quadruple it in like 30 days. And you were trying to figure out who would actually be interested in buying it. And I remember I wasn't really friends with Mike at the time. I remember it was one of the first things that popped in my head when I was like, Mike's such like a health nut, like, and he's investing in all these other businesses. Like, I feel like Mike would be I don't even know how did that actually happen in terms of you guys chatting?
Yeah. So for those not clear who that is, Mike Geary runs a business called The Truth About Abs. And if you've ever seen One Weird Trick for a Flat Belly, he basically is the guy who made that happen. Like any one weird trick shit that you see on the internet, like Mike popularized that back like 10 years ago. And is an amazing digital marketer. So basically we did an online event, me and the previous owner, and it went well, but it was very stressful for him. And he basically was like, he's like, this isn't really for me. You know, I'd rather basically sell this company. And I was like, oh shit, okay, I might know some people. And so I basically was like, who are the two richest people I know in the health industry? And it was Mike and it was Mark Sisson. So I actually went to I emailed Sisson and was like I'm interested in you buying this company. And he gave me two options for lunch. One was like a sandwich shop and the other one was like Nobu. And of course I picked Nobu. So we went to this like super pretentious thing, had like a $250 lunch. And I basically pitched him on buying it, and he didn't, of course, because it didn't really make sense for him. But it was cool to like go through that exercise, because I've later like played ultimate frisbee with him and all sorts of stuff, and like, but he's like, he still is, but he was like, I'm like, this is like amazing business person. I can't
for the people listening who don't know who Mark Sisson is, he's the guy who created Mark's Daily Apple and then eventually Primal Kitchen, which just sold to Kraft for like $200 million. So they make all paleo salad dressings and ketchup and mayonnaise and all kinds of food products. And he went from a tiny blog to a $200 million exit.
Yeah. And so that didn't work out. But then I was pitching Mike on it. And basically, you know, Mike is someone who guards his time aggressively and is not a phone call person. So I kept trying to get him on the phone. Like, I got this deal for you. And he wouldn't talk to me. And finally I sent him an email. I was like, I want you to buy this company. And he's like, oh, let's talk tonight. And we fucking talked that night. And Mike basically did an equation of like, we were his affiliate at Payload Hacks. So he's like, I know you guys make this amount of money per email. So if I pay this amount of money for the business, then by this time it will return. And also like Mike was going to put his weight towards it. Like the business immediately became 10x more valuable as soon as he bought it. But he did the math equation. And then over the course of the next few months, he negotiated with the previous owner. And in May of 2014, so it'll be 7 years this May, which is crazy. He took over and we became business partners, which is probably the best business thing that's ever happened to me. It's not probably, like, it's definitive.
But it's also one of those things. I'm a big fan of, even though Mike is the majority owner and you are making less than him, you're getting a smaller piece of a bigger pie as a partner.
Yeah, well, actually, he gave me a bigger piece than I was getting with the previous owner. But in terms of out of the 100%, absolutely, yeah. I mean, Mike is like a legendary figure in our space. When I was interning with Ryan Lee, it's like Mike Geary. He's the one who really made it. He's the one who figured out paid traffic before everybody else. So getting to be his business partner was like, I could not fucking believe my luck. And I honestly, like, as much as we've known each other, we're buddies now for 7 years, I still feel that way. Like, he's incredible. So I would say, like, aside from just the general story, the lesson here is that, like, I was a nobody. I didn't know what the fuck I was doing, but I just showed up confidently and demonstrated that I kind of knew what I was talking about, and shit happened for me. I just decided, like, I am not going to be a person who's going to, like, let this opportunity slip away. Like, I'm going to fucking make this happen. And I basically was telling myself, like, Mike doesn't know this yet, but he's going to buy this company. Like, he is for sure going to buy this company. I was thinking that thought months before it actually happened. And there's some power to that. There really is. Like, if you believe it, you will put in that extra step to make it happen. You will send that extra follow-up email when you think it might not be a big deal. And, shit happens.
Also a good lesson that you kept trying to get him on the phone and he wouldn't get on the phone. Then you finally just switched modalities and emailed him. And I'm the same way. Like, if you want to get me on the phone, it better be some huge fucking thing that's really in my interest, because
yeah,
I'm just whatever. I don't want to get on a phone call.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so Paleo Hacks gets going. I'm actually curious, when did you guys start going into the free plus shipping cookbooks? Because that's what you're, like, known for now. You've done millions of sales of these. You guys crush it with the free plus shipping cookbooks. When did that actually start?
Yeah, I can give you a very specific answer. December 2015 or so. Right before then, so Diana Kulian, Bedros' wife, came out with a book called The Recipe Hacker. And she did a free plus shipping model, and Mike mailed for it, and it was like record-setting sales. It was the actual first free plus shipping cookbook. What happened, though, was I think Diana was working with a traditional publisher, so they, like, ran out of stock, and then they couldn't sell anymore, and they went to this digital version, and it converted like garbage, and it stopped working. So first, and I don't know everything that happened there, but basically, like, suddenly there was a super hot free plus shipping cookbook, and then there was none anymore. So everyone had, like, smelled blood in the water, and I obviously majorly smelled blood. And we were working on creating a cookbook with my buddy Pete at the time, and we were thinking about doing a DVD, whatever. And then after this happened, I remember being on the mountain with Mike snowshoeing. Actually, believe it or not, the one time that's ever happened. And I was like, shit, we should do a free plus shipping book. Like, that's a good idea. Clearly it's working. And he's like, yup, let's do it. I was like, okay. And so we did Paleo Eats, which is our first free plus shipping cookbook. And Justin, our ClickBank account has, like, a before Christ and after death sort of moment, which is the day we launched Paleo Eats, which was like, before it was like 500 to $1,000 a day, maybe, in our ClickBank account. After that, it was like 5K plus every day for the next, like, 3 years, until we've kind of moved away from ClickBank. But that exploded our business. I mean, we weren't making a lot of profit, but we certainly were getting a shit ton more people in the door. And we went from being, like, selling a few thousand cookbooks, in that first year and doing that one big launch to, like, I think in the first year we probably sold, like, well over 200,000 copies of Paleo Eats.
Yeah. And so, just to elaborate on this for the people listening who don't really understand the model, the whole idea here is to bring buyers on your list. If you can break even, great. If you have to go a little bit in the hole, fine. If you're profitable on the front end, awesome. Because the big thing you want is just more buyers on the list, because you're going to monetize them by sending them other cookbook offers, supplement offers, whatever it is on the back end. Mm-hmm. That's one of the things that you guys are really good at, which I'm sure you learned a ton from Mike, because Mike is kind of the G at optimizing and monetizing an email list.
He's probably the best in the world, honestly. Anytime I've ever, like, even remotely challenged him on it, like, let's just say he's very confident. He's like, shut up, kid, I got this. I'm like, all right, I'm sorry, you're right. Yeah, so the model is a double-edged sword, to be honest with you, and it is a difficult model. I just want to be clear to anybody listening that the majority of our sales and profit from this came from affiliate traffic at first. We did not get paid advertising working for another 3 years after this launch. And so the model essentially is we're trying to cast a wider net. It's the book is essentially free plus shipping anywhere from $6.95 to $9.95. And interestingly enough, that converts better than if you said just pay $9.95 for this book. It just, the psychology of that is like, there's like a 5x conversion rate just by changing that language. It's crazy. And we saw immediately, like, we were able to just get a ton of people in the door. But essentially, you know, you're giving commission on that shipping rate. So, and I'll try not to do too much like visual math, but essentially if it's $10 shipping, I have a $5 cost of goods and then a 75% commission. So $7.50 to give to the affiliate. So if I'm selling it for $10 and I'm doing that commission, plus I have my cost of goods, I'm already in the whole $2.50 before any upsells are presented to the customer. So you can see like the economics of that do not really vary unless you give affiliates way less commission, in which they probably won't mail for you. That's kind of the set thing. Like if you did like a really tiny piece of shit book for $1, maybe, you know, but generally that's not, you're not going to have a good buck doing that. Like you got to sell something of quality. So the upsells are the most important piece. Like basically, you know, you got to make back, you know, at a minimum $2.50 there, but more likely, you know, you want to make back another, if it's front end $10, you want to make back 10 to 15 bucks on your upsells, get that average order value up to 10 to 25. And so that has been a big thing for us is upsell optimization. And I would say that like one of the nice things about free plus shipping is actually it's a very easy thing. We feel like we can come up with any cookbook title and make it a free plus shipping with our template, and it's going to convert really well on the front end. The average order value and the back end is where you have the majority of the work. It's not hard to sell a free plus shipping cookbook. It is hard to make profit from a free plus shipping cookbook.
One thing I think that you guys do right, and this would be a huge lesson for anybody listening.
Yeah.
And Stefan and I preach this all the time. Once you have something that's working, don't try and reinvent the wheel. Just keep duplicating the same thing over and over. So like you guys figured out free plus shipping cookbooks work for you, and it puts the right kind of buyers on your list that buy stuff on the back end that you want. Mm-hmm. And so you just keep coming out with more free plus shipping cookbooks. I'm kind of curious, how did you guys, the subsequent books that came out, where did you kind of get ideas for those? Because like I know you did the paleo dessert one, which I thought was a brilliant idea, because we always talk about having these super sexy offers that people really, really want. And what is the one food that people really want? They want fucking desserts. They want chocolate and pies and cookies and brownies. And it's brilliant. It really is absolutely brilliant to sell that.
Yeah, well, it's also an easy sell too. I don't have to tell you Joanne's weight loss story of how she lost 47 pounds after her hospital visit. I'm just like, here's some desserts. This book is $10. Like, do you really need to think about it more? Like, come on, let's go. Give me your money. And believe it or not, Paleo Sweets, even as old as it is, still converts surprisingly well, though the average order value is pretty bad now. Yeah, I mean, we did Paleo Eats, and then I bumped into Kelsey at Traffic and Conversion Summit, I think at one of your parties even. And she was like, I'm interested in cookbooks. And I was like, we sell cookbooks, let's do it. And she was the one actually who came up with Paleo Sweets. And what she did was she went and she Googled the top desserts in each category of the book for Google search volume, and was like, here's my proposal for the book, which I thought was a brilliant way to put it together. And, you know, gives you a lot of hooks in the marketing. And so we did that with her and launched that about, I think that was in fall of 2016, I want to say, is when that came out. And that did really well. Then we did a keto version of that about a year and a half later. And we were really slow at products back then. And so we basically only had one clear offer until it would fatigue, and then we do another one. And that actually probably was almost a good thing for us, you know, because we then, after the keto sweets incident, where like Paleo Sweets was fatiguing, we needed a new offer quickly. We were like, wow, let's never be in that situation again. And we created like a shit ton more offers after that. And of course, we created a bunch that weren't free plus shipping cookbooks, which was a dumb idea. Like we found out the hard way that like they take just as much, if not more effort. and then our audience is into more free plus shipping cookbooks. So after like, and we still even did this last year, we did products that our audience didn't really want. So that's like an ongoing battle we've had. But yeah, I mean, we basically just decided, for me, like it's been concrete in the last 6 months where I'm like, we're a fucking cookbook company, and that's going to be our thing, and that's what our customers want, and that's what we sell. And anytime someone has a cookbook offer that's complimentary too, we can sell that and do really well with. But now that we have a bunch of offers, that's been super helpful for both paid and affiliates, because we have a ton of affiliate relationships from building them up over many years. They'll mail for us all the time because our stuff converts and free plus shipping is easy. And they're like, we need more. And so now we're in this abundant situation where like we can just keep churning out these offers as long as they fit that sort of targeted piece, and have them be a part of the thing, and also sell more books internally to our audience too, which has been a big needle mover for us of late.
I remember, man, it was probably 2017 or so. We did when I was still running the supplement company, Alan and I did a consulting day with Jenny Thompson, who used to be the CEO of Agora's Health Division, super smart marketer. And we were talking about our next products to put out. And she basically she's like, well, what are all your buyers right now? And I was like, oh, they all bought our green supplement. Everyone came in on the greens offer, which is kind of an anti-aging, feel younger, look younger, kind of more energy kind of offer. We had all these ideas of doing a blood pressure supplement and a joint pain supplement to kind of fill out this like catalog of products that we wanted. And she was like, you have an entire list of 250,000 people who bought an anti-aging supplement. Make more anti-aging supplements and sell those. She's like, they've already raised their hand and said that's what they want to buy.
Yeah.
It was just, she said it in a way that I was just like one of those baseball bat over the head moments. I was like, oh my God, why did I not think of that? Like, what the hell? I'm sitting here trying to create joint pain products and blood pressure because I wanted to fill out our catalog in a certain way and have like all these different things. And she's like, no, this is what they buy. They've already shown you this is what they buy. Sell them more of that. And it was just so clear and just so brilliant. And I think you obviously have had that same realization with the cookbooks. It's like, our people buy cookbooks. Let's stop dicking around with this other stuff and sell more cookbooks. Obviously, we can do affiliate deals for supplements and stuff like that, but like, let's just keep selling them cookbooks.
Yeah, I mean, last year, we made an immunity supplement to try to piggyback on what's been happening. And that was really fucking stupid. Like, just, we were all convinced. We all collectively as a company convinced ourselves that it was a good idea. And by the way, this book, Decisive, is amazing for avoiding stupid decisions like that. Yeah, we did a whole supplement and it bombed, and our audience didn't really want it. And we were trying to we put in all this work. We tried to force it to make it happen. And then we created another cookbook, and it made like 10 times as much money as the supplement did in the first fucking day. We're like, what have I been doing? Like, the issue in entrepreneurship and business as you grow is definitely not lack of opportunity. It's too much and making sure you focus. And that's one thing where Mike for sure has helped me a lot, is because he's been doing the same business for like fucking 12 plus years. And every year it grows and it compounds, and it's like, it's unsexy sometimes, but the thing is if you focus on one thing, like shit starts to really happen. And that's really started to happen in the last 2 years for us, is like, I've started to see the compounding effect of many years of work. And like, now we like really understand our industry. We're really established. We've got great relationships. Like, I'd have to go out of my way to sabotage our business now to make it fall apart. You know what I mean?
I mean, that's probably, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's probably been the biggest kind of aha for me over the last, let's say, 18 months, is the more successful you get, the better you have to get at stripping stuff away and focusing on less. Because as you said, the opportunities are infinite. And it's really fucking hard to say no to good opportunities. Like I get opportunities all the time where I'm like, I guarantee I can turn that into a 7-figure business, or that can make me 50K a month. And it's like really, really freaking hard to say no to that.
Yeah, it's the trap of being success. You know what you're capable of, and you've seen what you can do. So you're like, of course I could do that. And we're not really able to like fully logic ourselves through those decisions,
Yeah, the reality is when you focus on one thing, maybe potentially two, you get such better results. You just really do.
Yeah.
It's something Steph and I teach in the Copy Accelerator group all the time with people. Like, people are launching an offer and they're like, well, we're trying to get these 3 offers to work, and we're trying them on these 4 different traffic sources. And I'm like, no, one traffic one traffic source, one offer. And when you scale it to 100 sales, then go out and maybe get more traffic. But like, you aren't going to make it work when you're trying to scale 3 different offers on 4 different traffic sources. You're never going to get anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I was doing that in our business. I was trying to run 4 businesses simultaneously back in 2012 and was like not making any money. And I was like waking up in a fucking panic every morning because of all the shit I had to do. And I overcommitted and stuff. And I think, yeah, it's a huge trap. Again, like, you know, we rely on our egos to kind of feed us as entrepreneurs and stuff. And that can come back and bite you. And frankly, like me and you were just talking before this call, that I might be putting myself through that situation literally right now. Even know it. I'm like explaining to you how to avoid this, and I'm still potentially facing that in my own life. That's how fucking pervasive this is. It's incredibly difficult to avoid those scenarios. And yeah, I think like there's the ceiling that you think you have in your business and your offer and your career and whatnot, like, is much higher than you think. And that's a lesson that Mike has definitely helped me learn. And I've talked to you about as recently as earlier this week about our upsell stuff, for example, is like, you can have big wins, but you got to remember there's always that next level there. Like, don't just have a win and then be like, let's not do that anymore. Let's move on to the next thing. Like, whatever that big win is, like, you can probably 10x that thing and keep riding it. You can probably actually, that's the thing that's really the truth, is you can 10x it, but what you can really probably do is 100x it. And I think people maybe get to that 10x or whatever and then like freak out or run away or think that it's not possible. And I face that all the time. You know, I'm like, maybe this is it. Maybe this is as big as we'll ever get. And no, that's not true. You just got to keep going. You know.
All right, let's talk about, all right, so Payload Hacks now is somewhere around like $11 million in revenue. You guys grew that from scratch or wherever the hell it was back then.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah, essentially from scratch. What does the next kind of 6 to 12 months look like for you in terms of that business? Is there anything you guys are working on that you're really excited about? Is there anything new you're going to do, or is it more continuing to follow the model that's worked so far?
You know, it's interesting because now this has become a thing with my employees where I'm like, I know in my head that the unsexy truth is that more of the same. Like there is the whole what got us here won't get us there piece, for sure. That's more about like the structure of the business, but in terms of the offers and everything, it's for sure more of the same. And we've had team meetings where I'm like, they're like, so what's the plan? I'm like, we're just gonna keep doing what we're doing. And I'm like, oh, I feel bad about that. Like now there's like that pressure where I'm like, it's going to be really exciting and fun. We're going to do a lot more of what we did last year. You know, like, it's so fun. I would say for us, you know, we've become I should call us amazing. We're not amazing. We're quite good at customer acquisition. You know, we can get people in the door. We're selling anywhere from 200,000 to 350,000 cookbooks a year on average. And, you know, we've gone from doing that and making no profit to doing that and making some profit. And we're trying to incrementally increase that sort of net bottom line. We've done a really good job improving our margins and stuff. But for me, you know, we've got enough front end offers now that what we really need to keep doing is pumping out back end, more cookbooks to sell our customers, and then hopefully a subscription, which has been a difficult challenge because this is another thing where subscription is this big opportunity, we think, and everyone's always talking about it. You got to get subscription revenue in your business, et cetera. But as me and you have talked about too, where I'm like, well, how do I test this? How do I do this without making this into another thing where I spend all this time, it doesn't work out, and I could have just made another cookbook over here. And it's this interesting thing where it's like, you should be really focused, but occasionally it's like the Henry Ford horse-drawn carriage thing where you need to innovate. So that's been something we've been trying to figure out. But at the end of the day, it's about back end. It's about increasing our prices, our lifetime value of our customer, improving the customer experience and the product quality, I think, because direct response is rapidly becoming more about that than just like being the loudest person in the room. Yeah, I'd say at the end of the day, it really is more cookbooks. I think the one maybe slight shift that we're trying to do is scale up our product development piece, because like split testing for us, like you can do price testing and headlines, copy shit all day, but our biggest wins, and you've seen this from working with us, are when we have new offers entirely, or at least like a new upsell offer. So like anytime we've created like a new upsell one based off of a winning template, it's like a gigantic $4 to $5 win sometimes. And that's like like last year we had one of those that made us 2 million extra dollars. And so my focus is trying to remember that I figured that out, or from Jay, honestly, and be like, okay, that's the big, like, if you're going to 80/20 your time on the business, make that happen. And so we've decided to double down on product development, where we'll just constantly be creating stuff. So instead of being like, oh, this offer isn't performing, we need a new upsell, and then wait 3 months to get it done, it'll be like, oh, it's already in the works because we've been working ahead on that stuff. So it's easier to compile. And with us, that just means like having a lot of recipes made in advance that we can then bundle up into different books and whatnot. So that's going to be a big sort of production shift for us. But cookbooks, man, that's it. That's the business.
Dave Sinick, the king of cookbooks.
Hopefully.
All right, man. So I'm gonna wrap this up. I want to ask you one last question before we end. So you've been a Copy Accelerator member for what, since the beginning now, right?
Oh yeah, I raised my hand first. I was member number one, obviously.
So you're in with your copywriter Ning. You guys are both in the group. If somebody was watching this and thinking of joining the Copy Accelerator Mastermind, what would be your advice to them?
For sure, do it. I mean, I've been a part of groups, so I think there's a lot of different ways it's beneficial. It's beneficial if you're a business owner and you're trying to put your employees in there. That's what we've been doing, and that's been amazing. It's beneficial as a business owner to participate in the group, which is something that I do a lot. And also I've been giving a lot of advice in the group too, which I think has been helpful for people. And I'm like trying to make friends in the group and stuff. So like people ask questions like, how do I run the thing? I'm like, I'm happy to help. I love it. And I think there's a really good community in the group. Jay and Alvin and a bunch of other very smart business owners in there that are willing to share. And it's created a great culture. So it's great for me. It's great for my employees. And I've seen other groups that do stuff like this, and yours is way better run, way more culture, way better culture. Like it's fun and relaxed. It's not like weird and snooty. Like I've been to something like this where they like brought us into a room and took our phones away. And I never went back. I was like, this is great. Like I'll never do this. Not that like, you know, I'm trying to not pay attention, but like the principle of that was like, we're not children here. We're business owners, like treat us as such. And yeah, I think the group is amazing. I'm a huge fan, and I wish you guys could duplicate it with a bunch of other like do a customer service accelerator and like a marketing and manager accelerator, and like because the model is extremely well done. I'm a huge fan. I cannot recommend it enough.
Awesome, man. Appreciate that. So yeah, let's wrap this up. Totally appreciate you coming on, sharing your wisdom, sharing your stories. I think this will absolutely help a lot of business owners or kind of up and coming copywriters who want to eventually start their own offer and start their own business. So yeah, appreciate you sharing everything, and thanks again.
Yeah, thanks for having me.